Hey, good evening. This is Matt Lehman. I'm your streamer. Welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. And we're going to jump right into things today. I've got some fun stuff that I want to do around working with CircleCI and S3 and all of that jazz. So to give you context, if in case this is your first time, or just to recap, because it's been a couple weeks since I've been able to stream, we are working on putting together the Python package that is my app, which is, let me bring that up real quick. College Conductor is the site that I work on as a software as a service. The details of this are not super important, but what we're doing is taking the application code and putting it into a bundle that has got all of the packages in it. And ultimately what that should enable me to do is make really super easy deployments where my deployment process will pull down a single file from S3 and connect stuff up and get going. So in previous streams, the last few times, we've been building out that type of file. It's called a Shiv app. Shiv comes from LinkedIn, but it's essentially this big tarball, well, actually zip archive of all of your files and your dependencies all pre-compiled with the stuff. So we've gone through all of these steps. If you look at this app of adding Shiv and making it work and actually generating that and generating the file all the way on CI. So where I left off from the last time we streamed was we need to do this final step of the PYZ file is created in CircleCI, and we need to get it up to S3. So that's what we're doing today. If you want to join in, I've got the chat open. Just be civil, please. I will go ahead and drop a note to say what we're working on. So we are working on this issue. If people come in here later. And what else? Ask me anything about Python, Django, or software stuff. So let's see. I spent a little time looking up in the documentation about how to integrate with AWS services in CircleCI. And in this process of looking it up, I found, and I'd heard about this, but I'd not really explored it, that CircleCI has this new-ish feature. I don't exactly know the timeline for when these came out. It could just be new to me, but they added this feature called orbs. And my understanding is that orbs are extra commands, extra stuff that you can basically pull in and make part of your configuration. And so what we're going to be doing is pulling in this particular orb, where it's an orb that's focused exclusively on AWS S3. So in advance of this stream tonight, I did some setup that I'll talk through. So some of that just had to do with secrets configuration, and I was going to have to block the screen anyway so that y'all couldn't see my secret keys and stuff. But I'll talk through what happened, what I did for that, to assuming that it worked, or we can debug it if I did it wrong. And essentially our flow tonight is going to be changing the CircleCI config that I have to use these orbs, this orb rather, and from there go through this process of copying something from there. Hey Anthony, welcome. Something from S3, or excuse me, from CircleCI to S3. That's the goal. I confess I don't know anything about orbs aside from the 15 minutes of documentation that I did reading beforehand. So we're going to find out how this process works and see if it's terrible or if I'm just terrible at it. One of the above. So let's get going on the code. So the first thing that I noticed that we have to change about this is that I'm currently using the version 2 configuration. And in order to use orbs, you have to update to the 2.1 version. That was step number 1. The other thing, and because we might have other Circle changes. Let me bring up the app or bring up the website, and we can have the settings up. So I have this project. I think this is the right button. Okay. And they said in order to use orbs, you have to turn on this pipelines feature. I didn't, there was notes about what the implications are and what's happening with this change. So we're going to see if, we're going to see how this goes. This might not work, or it might work well with the existing CI change that I have. So what I'm probably going to do is start by just changing the version to 2.1 and see if we get a build failure. And if we do, then we'll fix it. If we don't, then we'll move on to the next step. So it's going to be kind of incremental. And I think I've kind of lamented about this in the past, but when you work with these tools, they don't always do the best job of making it easy to do that locally. Yeah, you get to get some Circle experience. I'm sure I've fiddled with Travis and other things, and AppVeyor and some others, but they all sort of behave the same way, where you got to fiddle with something and see if it works, and if it works, then great. If not, then you try again. Although I think the tooling for some of these is getting better, and it's possible to do some of the stuff locally to check. And I don't remember if that was Circle or a different provider, but for the purposes of the stream, it's usually my jobs are really fast, so I think we can just work on this cycle of checking the website. So let's see. I haven't even written that file, so we're going to all I want to do to start is bump the version number, and so this will actually be testing two things at once, because before the stream, in the project settings, I turned on this pipelines setting. And I guess if we're also bumping to 2.1, we will find out if the build still goes. So let's make a commit and bump CircleCI to version 2.1. And this is still in support of the same issue. Where'd it go? Did I kill that? Must have. Okay. We'll bring up our issue again. This one, 377. So we'll write that out and push it up. And so success is going to be, I just want to move very slowly and incrementally, because since we are working at a distance with something, it's pretty easy to get this stuff wrong. And if you're changing too much, then who knows what change was actually the problem. So that's my rationale anyway for moving kind of slowly. Oh, I guess we did still have it up. So let's bring up the actual repo, which is probably building as we speak. And we can dig into the pipeline and see how it's going. So this is promising. It built the first stage and is moving on to the next one without any issue. So we'll keep watching this, but I'm going to assume for the sake of making progress rapidly that this is all kosher. So it's time to move on to the next thing and get to the right Vim session. So the way to start with orbs is to bring in a particular orb, and I'm just going to straight up copy paste from the CLI here. It's interesting. They have versioning on these orbs, and I don't know when you'd upgrade these. I guess having the versioning helps make sure that your CI pipeline is stable. So that's a positive thing. I don't know how you get changelog. It seems like one more thing to have changelogs for, which is kind of annoying, but whatever. So we're going to add AWS S3, and then we're going to look at the example and stare at it until it makes sense. So when I last streamed, we had the packaging step, and we actually listed out the file. So this file is built, and this is going to be interesting because I need to figure out what the file name is. So we're going to have to find some way to actually get the file from what was there. So let's go back over to the build, and that's taking a while. Normally it doesn't take that long to lint. I don't know what it's doing. But we can go back and look at previous jobs, and the file name that I built, I started making a package, and I'm versioning it because I want to be able to, in my deployment process, just bump the version as well. And so I want to be able to, instead of using the same like conductor.pyz name every time and overwriting in S3, I want each one to have a specific version. So let's come back into this last one and see what this looks like. So whatever the working directory is, we've created it, and it gets named like this. So I suppose we might be able to do, when we're figuring out the S3 path, we have to find some way to get out what is this. And maybe this will be pretty easy. Maybe S3 will allow wildcards, because since we're working in a container, it's not like there's going to be PYZ files from each iteration through the build. So we might be able to do something clever like conductor-star.pyz as the name, and that might be enough to get S3 to pull up the right file. So let's go back to the example. Let's see what we've got. So their example shows using the orb. They're using an image, and we declare the image. Oh, it's in the step. So it's using CircleCI Python 3.6 image. So it's a little different from their Python 2.7, but that shouldn't matter. And their process is just touch a file, essentially. Well, I guess echo, technically, a file that they want to upload to S3. So what we need to do is this guy, the copy, because I'm not syncing up anything, I think. Let me stop and stare at this for a minute. Looks like they're changing some bucket permissions and stuff. So I think what we're going to do is go over to AWS and log in and make sure that the deployments, I need to create a new bucket. This bucket doesn't actually exist yet. So I want to go over there and create a new bucket, make sure it has the right config, and that should do the right thing. Let's see, what is this an example of? They're changing credentials, and this is definitely the one we want. Copy a local file to another location locally, or in S3, yeah. And they've got a bunch more stuff down here. Okay, cool. So I really think it's going to be as straightforward as essentially using this thing and making sure we pass the right arguments and pass it to the bucket. So, you know, pie in the sky version, if we get this done really quickly, which would be cool, we can move on to actually using it and start the other half of this, where the deployment process will actually need to then pull from S3 to actually get the right file. So, but I'm guessing we're going to get hung up around the wildcard stuff of what copy can do. I'm going to try it with just a straight up wildcard and see if it works, just because that'll be easy. And if it doesn't, well, then we'll figure it out. But coming back to our circle build, oh, this was the old one. So let's look at master and see how everything's doing. got through the package step. So yeah, the upgrade to 2.1 went off without a hitch. Great. Okay, so where do I need to be? I need to be on AWS. And I'm gonna switch to my super secret view. Hopefully y'all can still see me. I did this wrong the other day where I actually switched to my sign off view by accident. Alright, looks like I did the right thing this time. So this is just so I can sign in, and so I don't have to change my credentials later if I am giving away too much information. And when it's at a place where we can look at it together, I will take it off the secret view. So, okay, I think it's probably pretty safe to look at. There we go. So I'm logged into the management console, and I know we could do this from the command line. I don't have straight, really complicated AWS setup. I'm currently using it for Postgres backups that I use with Wall-E is the name of the Python package that does Postgres backups. So those could just get sent to an S3 bucket for this account. So, and then I also have an experiment that I did with what are they called? When you have an Amazon Echo and the voice activated programs. I'm totally drawing a blank on what they're called, but that's what this Zappa stuff is. I made a Zappa app to do that. But here we are with my PG backups. So what I want to do is create a new bucket in here that has the right permissions, I think, to enable people to upload, or enable CI to upload to it. And then they will just all start getting dumped here. So we're going to create a folder, and let me read this because Amazon has changed like the UI every time I come in here. So we'll see if it's telling me anything new. All right, I don't know that we need any particular extra encryption here, so I'm just going to say, what are these things? What are that we're trying to upload? They're apps, I guess. It is the app, which will be a bunch of PYC files. So that name is as good as any. It doesn't really matter. It's just a bucket name. And now we can look at this and see. I don't know if we have to explicitly change anything about it. I don't want to make it public. So I'm going to assume for the moment, until something fails, that this is actually going to work the way we want it to. So coming back over to the file, and also, I guess, documentation. Let's copy this. Let's just straight up take this and put it in our package step. So I assume by adding the orb that we now have the AWS S3 copy command available. And what we're going to want to change is this guy right here of from, which should be that local file, which I think what I'm going to attempt is to say conductor dash star.pyz. I don't know how the wildcard is going to work, but we'll try it. And our S3 path, also going to switch this to double quotes just to be consistent with the rest of the file. Our S3 path should be What did I say it was? Not remembering this very well. College Conductor apps. And for the moment, we can stick with dry run to see if what will happen. I assume that won't actually do the upload, but it will attempt the connection. So that's pretty good. So there's a missing piece here that I haven't even talked about that I probably should take a moment to describe. And the question is, how is CircleCI going to know how to authenticate with AWS? And the secret is in the project has environment variables, which, where are the settings? And there's nothing you can really learn from this, so I'm not afraid to show it off, but there will be, or you'll learn the last 3 characters, but you'll be missing the other 30, so good luck. So you can add environment variables to your jobs in CI, and that lets you put secrets like in here into their configuration system without having to check them into your repository, which is really good. Yeah, I really don't want to rotate keys, so if I can avoid doing that, that would be great. So I added these, and when I did this, this is where I might get myself into a little trouble, but we'll go there anyway. Because what's the worst that can happen? I can rotate keys, I guess. So you can create individual users using IAM, which stands for, I don't know. It's an AWS service for doing resource and users and group and access control stuff. And so today I created a CircleCI user, which has its own set of keys. An AWS access key ID and then an AWS secret access key. I don't know why they're both called key, but whatever. So I added these 2 as environment variables, and if my read through of the S3 documentation was correct, it will just use those by default, look for that environment variable, and if it works, it works. So that's what we're going to try. And I think that means that we have enough. We've created the bucket that I want to put these things in, and we've created the wildcard that I'm hoping will work to actually identify the file. We might have to get more creative with that. I'm not sure. And right now we're passing in a dry run flag. I presume this comes from AWS CLI tools, so that dry run flag is probably documented somewhere. But that should be enough if I actually write it. So we're going to attempt to dry run and upload to S3 for 377. And I would be super impressed if this works right out of the gate. That would be really cool. My sneaking suspicion is that it won't, and we will be staring at some kind of weird error. But that would not be unusual for dealing with any sort of CI changes. I'm trying to think of what my weirdest CI problem was, because I've hit some weird ones along the way. Oh, am I on an old pre-commit hook? It helps when you have the pre-commit maintainer on the stream. What am I on? I've got the black stable one, and I've got one from pre-commit hooks. Has that changed? Let's take a look, because otherwise we're just waiting for a circle to build. I'm seeing, Miss Anthony. So I guess I need to figure out. You probably have it in your details of what should I replace it with, but I'm seeing wall of text. And I guess you also listed this guy. You should switch to. Okay, how do I switch to this? There's GitLab. Yeah. I'm still not up on the best way to switch. So I changed the repo and then changed the rev. Yeah. Yep. Change the repo, change the rev. Okay, cool. And I guess leave the language version. Cool, cool. 377. What the heck did I have before? Were you versioning them separately, differently? Because this is 377, I imagine, matches up with their own versioning. And then what I had just a moment ago was V140. I'll take it. I'll assume that that's right. So let's update pre-commit. Okay, that was the pre-commit version. Gotcha. Very nice. Thank you. Update pre-commit Flake 8. Cool. So there's our project setting. Where are we at with the pipeline? Ah, failure. Bummer. But not surprising. AWS configure set region. Oh, maybe I need to just pick the region. I don't have an AWS region there. That's probably what's missing. Come on, guys, why didn't you say that? Or gals, whoever wrote this, I don't care. Region. Did I have to? Maybe they did and I just didn't read it. It's my fault. Can't really blame them. Okay, fine. Now the question is, what region am I? Especially with S3, like I thought S3 is global? Regionless? Where, you're right, where would be the fun? Okay, US East 1. That's what Northern Virginia is, right? So back to project settings, environment variables. I'm going to add a variable. So this is the process. I guess it's good that this came up because this is the process that I went through for adding secret keys. Which I clicked that button, gave me a little menu. I typed in the variable name and gave it the value, which for the case of the permission, I just copied from IAM. But here it's US East 1 is the identifier for the region that I'm in, which is where my stuff is in, US East 1, which is in Northern Virginia, not too far from me. Okay. So that's now there. Thankfully, we have a pre-commit Flake 8 update to easily trigger the next CI build without having to find the place in Circle to restart a build. And so now we just need to see what that will do. So I think we can close that. Back over. Where are you? Something about the UI really gets me. Like I've got these things which are like I'm not even part of that company anymore, but it shows by default. got separate branches. Like they don't make it as easy as I would like. All right, we're testing, waiting for resources. I like that this is a small project so that the actual CI time doesn't take very long. My CI at work takes like 15-20 minutes, which is probably still better than most, but it's really nice when you have something that goes quickly. Well, this looks stalled. What are you doing? Oh. Oh. All right. This is our packaging step for the Shiv app, the actual thing that we're trying to upload. And I don't know why it's pulling in poetry at all. That one's totally foreign to me. Like, I'm not making an app with poetry, so that was confusing. It is using the AWS CLI. Not too surprising. Configure the region, that's where it bombed out last time. And how'd it do? Sweet. That did exactly what I would have wanted. That's really cool. Okay, so I think the only change that I need to make is to drop dry run. So remove dry run. And I often see on Twitter people basically describing their commit message for CircleCI, which is like, it failed, try again, more circle. Oh, that's a good question. It's not a problem because for me currently about PRs, because I don't really make PRs. I just commit straight to master. I know that's bad of me, but the advantage of being the only person on a project is like I can just wait till I'm satisfied locally and then just push it up. Although I suppose I probably should have some branch protection, which I think is possible in the CircleCI config. I just don't remember where. I hadn't even considered that. That's well, okay. So I guess I'm not going for continuous deployment. Maybe if I was, that would be a bigger deal. Because the flow of this so far is going to be, I will, every time I commit to master and push up, a new version of the app will go up to S3. But it's not until because I'm still tied to Ansible, it's not until I run my make deploy makefile that Ansible will kick off and then eventually pull down this file from S3. So I think, yeah, I guess somebody could make PRs that would spam my S3 bucket with extra uploads. But I don't know, maybe I don't know if I should be worried about that or not. Usually the CI provider gives you an option. Oh, yeah, so let's take a look. If it's super easy, it'd be nice to have it fail. Yeah, that's a good point. Things you don't even think about. I did. Okay, so this is a good call out. I did make it so that the account, the IAM account, where did that go? Bring it back up. So the account over here, I configured it so that its permissions only has access to S3. So yeah, it might suck if people were just like uploading nasty stuff to my S3 buckets. That would be really unfortunate, but that would at least minimize the scope of the damage. But let's see if Circle has settings for making sure that people can't echo that kind of stuff. Security? I don't know. It's not general security, at least. Check out this guy. They have AWS permissions, but it says it has this big thing. It's like, we don't do this anymore. I created an IAM user. So that's a good question. Like, how do they protect environment variables for public projects? Yeah, I'm on the environment variables tab here, and they will list them. What do you do to protect them? Oh, good question. Where did it go? They're neither readable nor editable in the app after they are set. See, okay, well, technically this is open source. What do you say over here? So that's good. So no one can. All right, so if you fork it and make a PR, you don't get the environment variables that I have set in this particular job. So I think that's, and if you made a PR, all right, that's good, because I would have to merge somebody's nefarious work in order to expose the environment variables. So I think it's covered. Right. It requires me to be a bonehead essentially, and like not pay attention to the fact that somebody's doing an echo on my environment variables. So that's good. But thanks for the question. That was a good thing to check. It makes me feel good about Circle in that way. Good job, guys and gals. Okay, getting back to the build though. Where did it go? I have it up somewhere. Overview? No, that's for settings. Workflows. Master. Remove dry run. Seems like it succeeded. Right. So we got through, and it says it uploaded that thing. So the other thing to do, I guess, is confirm that we have it in the bucket. And I also thought about, at some point, you know, S3 is really cheap. It's pretty cheap. But, oh, where are you? You're not in here. What the heck? Okay, we'll get to that in a second. So S3 is really cheap, so I was thinking, you know, do I need to even bother to clean up these packages? They're not tiny. I want to say they're like 20, 25 megabytes, something like that. But it's like pennies per gigabyte, so I don't know that I should be worried about it. What I'm more worried about, shoot. Okay. So here's our thing. Rather than put it in the bucket, it put it in file named apps. Of course it did. So almost, guys, but not quite. And I was pretty close on the size. It's 25 megabytes. Yeah, that's a good idea. Trailing slash in the config. It might be as simple as that. I didn't give it up. Let's try that first, rather than overthinking the solution. And let's go ahead and get rid of this thing. Delete. Where's delete? Actions. Delete. Yeah, so AWS, it seemed like from the CircleCI log that this was just a wrapper around some common AWS CLI commands. So I have a strong feeling that you're right. So add trailing slash to put file in the bucket rather than be the bucket. Okay. Go through this another time. I'm really pleased with this orbs feature, though. They made this pretty easy. So props to the CircleCI team for kind of making common tasks not hard. Like before I even got to this, I was searching around for how do you do S3 on CircleCI, and found blog posts from even like a year ago. This must be pretty new. That was talking about going through a bunch of steps where you install the AWS CLI and do a bunch of extra configuration. But they've made this not very hard. Oh, here we go. So August 22nd, 2018. I can't imagine them have launched without S3 functionality, or must have come very soon after. So this has been out for a little while, but I'm a little behind the 8 ball on CircleCI because I only use it for this side project. Yeah, orbs is a bit of a weird name, but I guess because they're circles, CircleCI, they needed something to naming package management systems is hard. Do you call it packages? Or that would get confusing with everybody else who has packages. Crates. No, if you're Rust. Eggs. Python. Well, whatever. Let's check it again. There's another thing about this that I'm not really crazy about is, and you might not have even noticed, but the names of these packages are jumping by. So I used the let me bring it up. I did this in the last one, or did I? No, this was in the last stream. So the question is, where did I put it? I made a shell script. Where'd it go? Package. That's probably it. So the thing that I had to do that I knew that I was going to do this in CircleCI. So I used the CircleCI build number, which is here. But the problem is, like, if you have a pipeline, each sub-step of the pipeline gets its own unique build number. So my versioning scheme right now is incrementing by like 4 every time. And because it didn't start out with as many steps in the pipeline, it's at some like really random odd number. Yeah, 573. The last one was 569. So they're going to go up by 4 at the moment. The other thing I've considered doing is using the SHA. That might actually be a better solution because then it will clearly reference a git commit. I'm just wondering about the implications of like the deployment side of when I pull it down, how easy will it be to pull down? Maybe there's a way to say to S3, give me the latest file in the apps bucket. That's really ideally what I want. And then it doesn't matter so much what this file is particularly named. Okay. But as it stands today, this is done. We are uploading to S3. And I'm just going to close this. So what do we do now? Haven't honestly thought far enough ahead to consider everything. I think the next step seems to be some level of integration, pulling this into deployment. And where we go from there is kind of a journey, I guess. But that is the next logical thing to have happen, is the Ansible deploy needs to pull from S3. So do I have that here? Remove, no, so let's make a new issue. We're going to say, or before I do that, actually, I might have actually put it somewhere else, because there's a bunch of tasks on these things. No, that's not that one. It might not be any of these, but I thought I'd check. Certainly shouldn't be npm. Oh, there's so much stuff that I want to clear out of this deployment. It's going to be very nice. Cool. Okay, it needs to be a new issue. So we want to add shiv app pull from S3 to deployment. And so I'm thinking about the steps that might be required there. I don't remember if I already have it configured. So we need to check if the AWS CLI is configured there. I want to say I did use it for something. Must have, because I do, well, no, maybe not. I have Postgres uploads, but that's a different path. So I at least have the keys available as Ansible environment variables or Ansible vault variables. But I don't know that I deliberately have or explicitly have the CLI. And I guess the only other task is to, well, there's more than that. There's we need to make sure, create a place for apps to live. So I want to have like one destination directory where they all get put. And so that directory has to exist. So that's a pretty easy task to add. And pull latest app from S3. Is that it? Should be. Okay. So if we get this far, if we get through this, I think that's probably where I'll stop for the night, but because this is good enough work, the step after that we would do is then before even messing around with the deployments, I think what I need to do is actually test out the app that I'm creating from CircleCI and see that it works in my staging area, which is nothing more than a virtual machine, and check that this is all going to fly still. The assumption is because I'm building in a Docker image that is similar to my target, that this will all work. But that's an assumption. Okay, so this is going to be in the web roles. And I guess first let's search for AWS. There's Wally, some stuff in there. So I definitely have the keys available and the region through my group vars. So the way I configured Ansible is I have a vault file, but I don't want to have to like reference all of the vault path name, because the vault is just another YAML file, but it's full of secret configuration values. And so what I do is kind of this proxy trick where I'm just replicating the key that I want, so that throughout my Ansible configuration, I'm not actually saying vault.aws.access key ID. It was a nice little way to avoid an extra layer. And also, like, as my naming, you can see, like, I've even changed my naming scheme. I used to just use underscore and have like a very flat structure, but the YAML file, which I certainly cannot show, sorry, went to a more nested structure. So I've got those available, so that's good. And I use them. How do I use them? I'm passing them as into Wally. Is the only place that they're getting used as tasks right now. So we need to make sure that we can get the AWS CLI and Ansible. So let's go check out the Ansible docs. Ansible AWS CLI. Let's see what they have to say. And there's probably like 5 different answers to do it. Oh wow, this might be built in. Start with Ansible. We can pass them in. Okay, this is the route I want to take, this third one here. So since I have them as variables coming from my vault, when I'm using the individual Ansible commands, I can just make sure that I pass them the AWS access key and the AWS secret key. And that should be enough. So we need to find the S3 command, or the S3 equivalent, whatever that is. So here's the AWS S3 module. And okay, time to check the requirements. Oh, this is going to get interesting. So by taking out, it's going to get very interesting. Because I'm trying to minimize the amount of stuff that gets installed on the server, I have Bodo in my requirements file. Whoops, that came out funny. There it is, Bodo 3. So it's in requirements. But this is all going to be packaged up into a zip app. But Ansible is saying you need to have Bodo installed to run AWS commands. That's a bit of a bootstrap problem. So I guess what we're going to need to do, how do I want to deal with this? I suppose one thing I could do is just say forget it and install the latest Bodo stuff at the system Python. That just sounds nasty. I can't just like SCP this. This is not, I don't think S3 permits that kind of stuff. Because if I could just SCP, then it wouldn't be a problem. Can you SCP from S3? That would be super cool. You can't. Okay, you can't SCP. Nah, black. It's worth a thought. If I could avoid the AWS requirement altogether, that would be nice. So Ansible expects Bodo to be installed, but where? That's a strange requirement. Oh. Well, yeah. Shoot. I was just thought for a second it might just be like on my machine, but it's no, it's the host that executes the module. I did not. I don't even know how that's web ninjas. Ninjas? No, I didn't. I should have probably and asked that individual about this kind of stuff. Kind of stumped at the moment. I might recognize him. I did meet some of the. Well, it's hard to recognize him when he's got a silhouette. But I met some of the Ansible people last year at PyCon, but I don't know them well. Okay, so maybe let's do a search for Ansible AWS setup. Maybe there's somebody that dealt with this so many times that they just tell you how to do it. Bodo can be installed from your OS distribution. Well, that's true. I guess if it was installed, like I don't really care if it's an older version of Bodo for the purpose of just pulling down S3. And if Ubuntu is already packaging it up, maybe that's fine. Okay, let's consider that approach for a minute. So I doubt I have Vagrant running right now. So my staging machine is on Vagrant. It's an Ubuntu machine. And I'm bringing it up so that we can search on Bodo from apt over there. Oh, yeah, I'm not familiar with web ninjas. Met some other people, some other Red Hat folk that work on, I guess it was maybe like Ansible Tower and stuff. Okay. I don't even remember how, because I'm not installing Ansible from apt, because Ansible's mode is to like SSH and then send all of the stuff down the pipe. And then execute, so it sends the Python code over and then execs it on that side. So you don't have to have Ansible installed on your machine. But it's interesting, I was like, why can't you do that with Bodo as well? Like send down the Bodo stuff too. I guess that gets to be too hard of a problem. Whatever, it's okay. We'll get in there, we'll make it work. So I'm running, oops. Just trying to see what kind of dependencies are coming along with this. You're really not pulling in Bodo core? How does that work? Okay, when I'm running Ansible, I'm pretty sure I'm using the Python 3 version. Let's check the Ansible config. Maybe I'm not. That's possible too. Maybe it wasn't in Ansible config. Ansible gets to be a mess at some point. It's like a variable. Gosh. It's possible to specify your interpreter. There it is. Like, this is the kind of crazy crap that you have to do with Ansible sometimes. So I want to run Python 3, but at the time, Ansible is like one of the last packages that that get their junk together with Python 3, which makes sense. They have a huge module ecosystem, and RHEL is sort of slow to adopt Python 3. So in order to run Ansible itself using the Python 3 interpreter, you have to specify with this flag. But I thought this would be in Ansible config. I don't know why it's here, like as a variable for the production site rather than a default. I don't know. Yeah, let's see what Debian's got going on. Yeah, I don't know how they manage that at all. If Bodo cores and their Bodo 3s like requires, that's really bizarre. I'm just going to assume that if I install Python 3 Bodo 3, Python 3 Bodo 3, is that what it was? That was Python 3 Bodo. Oh, geez. Is there also a Python 3 Bodo 3? Because Bodo and Bodo 3 are different. Holy crap. Okay, Python 3 Bodo 3. Install that, and then assume that, okay. There it is, there's Bodo core. Okay. Gosh, I learned, it took me, I probably didn't learn this until just a few months ago, that I always thought that like Bodo 3 was just the Python 3 version of Bodo, but I learned that the versioning had nothing to do with the Python 2.3 thing. I'll probably think that for the rest of my life. Anybody that goes from 2 to 3, I'll probably just like confuse it with, oh, is it because your previous one was Python 2? So, okay, I'm getting my head on straight now. Go over to the web roles, and yeah, maintaining a fork can be terrible. I don't know, do I want to throw it in with this package tools task? Why not? It's not really a package tools. Am I going to feel bad about that later? That's okay. I'll leave a comment. To do S3 downloads. Okay. So that's the modification there. And so this is my web role. The web role is like everything that the application server. So I have a bunch of roles. I guess I can rewind a little bit to show the roles that I have. I use Datadog's role to get the monitoring on the server itself. I use this swap file thing because when I started with DigitalOcean, it didn't give enough memory. And since I was doing npm installs on the server, and JavaScript being JavaScript, took way more than the amount of memory that I had on my smallest droplet instance. So I added this role to basically make the server add a swap file, which doesn't come by default with droplets. So I was just like smashing on the disk for a while. And then I have a load balancer role for Nginx. This is my RabbitMQ role. Here's my JavaScript. You gotta download the latest JavaScript node version. And this is my Celery thing. So all the stuff that happens in this web role is related to the actual Django app. And so I'm in here, and what do I need to do? This is all, I'm trying to just think of the right place to put this. We've got the front end building here. Probably will go around here, where I am currently creating and fetching from GitHub and creating the directory. Yeah, let's put it here. We'll be nice and confusing. We're going to call this create apps directory because it's something different. And we want to give it a path. This is my old style of doing this was using the inline stuff, but I think as I've been adding new Ansible tasks, I'm switching more to the just straight up style like this, where everything is just a big dictionary of things. And so we need to do, I can put it here, I guess. In my current structure, let's see, what do I have in there? I have my virtual environment and conductor, which is the actual clone of the repository, and this renew certs shell script for Let's Encrypt. But I basically put everything that I care about that is unique to the app into this area. So I think what I want to do is create an apps directory here, and it will get the PYZ files will just be stored in there. And eventually I want to do some sort of system where I can do a symlink and just swap symlinks around so that I can get some notion of kind of blue-green deployment. I don't know how advanced I want to get with this, but for the moment, for the time being, we might be able to just dump it here for now. That's really the goal. but it has to exist. CircleCI wants you badly, I guess. They are a good service, but I guess if you're already using Azure pipelines, you don't really have a need for it. So, okay, so this is the state is a directory, and I think that's enough to say I want this to exist. The deployment's pretty quick, so I'm going to go, whoops, just try this and see if it does what I expect it to. Vagrant provision is the way that I do my staging deploys. And I haven't actually done a deploy in a while, so because of Node, there's always a chance that it could blow up if it's been a long time. So we shall see. Which is why I'm really motivated to get that stuff out of there. I really want all of that to be on CircleCI so I can stop thinking about it here and get this even shorter. So CI is doing a lot of this work, like installing, well, this is actually installing Photo 3, but like installing the requirements and all of that, it's just going to make deploys a lot quicker. Must be refreshing the apt cache because it hasn't done that in a while. All right, let's look at that issue while we're waiting. So AWS CLI is available if we have Photo 3. That's what we're checking right now. And we just created a place for the apps to go. That's that directory. The last step will be a task to do this, pulling the latest app. And I guess while the deploy is going, maybe we should look at the AWS CLI and see how to pull a certain named file. Here's where I might want to switch over to a SHA, because if my deploy can work like this, if I'm doing what am I trying to say? If I'm doing deploy that's already gone through CI and I haven't made any commits to master, then Ansible locally knows the SHA that it needs to pull from, and so it can look for AWS for a file of that particular SHA. Whereas currently, by using the circle build number, it doesn't have that. Ansible doesn't know how to get that number, so it's not going to be able to do that. So unless there's a way that I can pull the latest file, the latest timestamped file from S3 in Ansible, that's important because it might be one thing to be able to do it from CircleCI, but excuse me, from the AWS CLI, but sometimes I find that the Ansible modules are constrained in additional ways that you don't anticipate. So I need to be able to do that if I want to go that way. But there's a lot of options in here, so maybe it's in here somewhere. Okay. Guess we'll at least check out if that step did what we wanted. Yeah, there's the serve directory. And it has nothing in it. Okay. Now what? Now how do we get, let's see if we can find a way to get the latest as file from a bucket. I think this is old documentation. Yeah, this is just an old one. So we were looking at the right place. We have a destination. Let's look at an example first. I've got lots of them. Simple get destination. This is what we want. So we want to pull from the college conductor bucket, and it's going to be, this is going to be the hard part of what is the object name. There's probably something that you could put in headers. I don't know. There's probably a million ways to do this. So this is deleting. Oh. It's at least stable. That may not be in my favor if they can't do the latest. Which makes me lean more and more towards using like specific SHAs might be the smartest way to go. Okay, get latest from S3 bucket. Well, that's not a very helpful answer. I don't really have the option to do a bunch of procedural kind of programming in Ansible. And they're basically saying the same thing using a Boto 3 script. Yeah, by get last modified. Okay. Well, let's switch it. So let's commit this little task. That's not hurting anything. Yeah, that's fine. And also go to the package thing, package shell here. And we're going to change this to, well, we gotta look it up. Circle. They have some built-in environment variables. Nope. Where are you? Here we are. So I used build number before. That was the number from the build. But one of these was for the SHA. There's the SHA one. I think that's what I want. So let's come back over to the config. And I forgot to delete the ls steps. This actually works to our advantage. In the package step, we can change this to SHA1. And I also use this in the setup.py. I don't know, this might have been a bad idea, but I'll keep it for now. Python doesn't really care what your version name is. So it's going to be a really kind of ugly looking package, but that's okay. Yeah, it should still be fine, I think. So now if we do a build in CircleCI, we're going to build it from the SHA-1. And I do that because in Ansible, if I haven't done it already, I should at least be able to get the SHA. Pretty sure somewhere in here I pull that. Where is it? Well, I know I've done it in the past, at least, so I know that I can do it. We can essentially store the SHA. And is it in load balancers? Yeah. So there's the get info. Somewhere I stored this. I registered the output of the get info, and that would be the identifier that we care about, I think. This might need to move a lot earlier, but that's okay. We still got this. So this is probably where I'll wrap it up for tonight. Just see it go. Make sure that make sure the CI is still working, and then we'll finish off the deployment next time around and make sure we can actually get this all in deploy. And then we can start testing out the app and see that if it actually works in Ubuntu. So let's commit this up and switch from build number to SHA-1. And this is for issue 382. Build pipeline. So assuming this goes and works, that's where we'll wrap it for tonight. So I guess I'll cover the things that I say towards the end so people can be aware of them. I do take what these streams are and I upload them to YouTube. So if you have questions or things you might have missed, they are available there as a resource to scan through and jump around and see what parts I've covered. I am also available if you have any questions and you want to talk to me on Twitter. I'm available to chat there and on other social media. So that's where you can follow me. If you have any feedback about things that I might be able to do better, I'm all ears. I want this to be useful for people. It's not just me getting a project done. I mean, that's part of it, but I want it to be a useful resource for the community and cover things that are things that you have to do. Not specifically, maybe your tool's not CircleCI, but the process and the thought processes that I'm going through are things that are not unique to my app alone and can be done in a myriad of ways. But at least if what I'm doing it serves as guideposts, then I think that's like a win. So if there are additions to make that easier for you, I would love to hear about ways to do that. You can follow me. My website's listed above. My username for various social media is also listed above, but it's right here, MB Lehman. And if this was valuable, like or subscribe on Twitter, Twitch, whatever. Use the proper terminology there because it's different between the different channels. So yeah, that's that kind of stuff. It looks like the package was successful. So let's see what it created. There we go. We've got the full conductor with a SHA-1 sum. So we'll be able to use that next week. Yeah, I think next week I'm available to stream. So next week we will take this guy here, or this package, use the SHA-1, and then pull that from S3, and we'll start poking around on it, see how it works. I imagine that because it's in a very separate directory, it's going to break right off the bat because it expects the settings to be in a certain place. So we're going to have to figure out how to make settings smarter to know where different pieces are. So that's part of the process of getting us towards the goal of having just a Shiv app be deployed very simply out to the production site and simplifying the deployment. So that's really all I've got for tonight. Thank you so much for joining in, and I'll see you next time. Take care.